Jim. He's dead.
Hello, and welcome to Improv Autopsy. I'm your host, Stephen Cadwell. In this episode, I interview a legend of SAK Comedy Lab, Joel McCrary. Joel is an accomplished film and television actor and a talented improviser and director. Joel is also one of those people who, though we've never met in person, had a profound impact on my improv journey. I heard Joel McCrary's name bandied about SAK whilst I was a student and an eventual ensemble member. I'm not sure if the Wall of Fame made it over to the new location or not. I haven't been there yet, but Joel is still present in some capacity, and was as I was rising through the ranks. His biggest influence on me and the theater wasn't through his photo on the wall, however. At some point, a young Jose Rodriguez attended a SAK show and saw Joel McCrary on stage. And Jose saw himself in Joel, and a seed was planted. Jose would eventually take classes, befriend a Midwesterner by the name of Steven, form an improv group called Offsides with Greg Yates and Jenny McIntyre as well as Steven, and become an ensemble member at SAK himself. Jose has been a great friend and colleague to me since I met him at SAK classes and has been a tremendous asset to SAK Comedy Lab for many years, and is himself on stage inspiring others to try their hand at improv. All because of Joel McCrary. As performers, we never really know whose lives we touch, or in what way, and our legacies can never fully be known because some threads are untraceable. I'm sure there are other stories of people who he's influenced in other ways, but I can unequivocally say that SAK Comedy Lab would not be what it is today, and I would not be the improviser I am today without the ripples of Joel McCrary's presence in the mix. I invite you to experience a little of that as you listen to Joel McCrary's Improv Autopsy. Thanks for joining me on my little podcast, Improv Autopsy. My tens of listeners will be happy to hear from you.
I'm excited. I'm excited for them to hear from me.
You're a name that has been in my consciousness since I started at SAK, but I think I just missed you, or I don't know how much, a little bit of time, but I didn't miss you by much. And I know you've been brought up by a couple other people recently.
Well, it's nice to be remembered.
So I guess initially, let's go all the way back.
Okay.
Do you remember your first encounter with improv? The first time you were aware that improv existed?
Yeah, I don't remember specifically, but I remember kind of the time period. Well, the first time I ever heard about it, it sounded horrible. I remember I was in college and a friend of mine had gone and done summer stock at some place. I had gone somewhere else, and we came back, I guess it was probably then sophomore year, and they said, the theater I was at, there were a couple of guys there, and they were involved with this thing called theater sports. And then she described it. It's like, well, it's a competition, and I'm all about getting along, and I hate confrontation. So competition, also, I was never into sports, which was a big problem growing up in Mississippi. It was like, football, I don't care. The coach, because I'm a big guy, was like, please, McCrary, stop doing that theater crap and come and be on my team, because we had a horrible, horrible team. It's like, well, first, I don't want to be on your team. And second, I don't like getting hit or yelled at. So I don't think football's for me. I'm going to go do the tango with middle-aged ladies at community theater, which is what I did. So that was the first time I ever heard about it. And I was kind of like, theater sports, competitive improv, you don't have a script, you're making it up. That part, I think I may have kind of gone, oh, well, maybe, because I always was attracted to that. When I was a kid, I loved Tim Conway. When he would go off script, that was like big inspiration. And so when I started doing community theater and like musical theater workshops for kids and stuff like that, I was always going off script because I thought that was fine. Because, well, Tim Conway does it. Why can't I? And what I found was it was fine with some people. The community theater that I did stuff with, Hattiesburg Civic Light Opera, the conductor, a man named Raul Jerome, he loved it when I would go off. The director hated it, but he loved it, and I would just hear him down in the pit. Anytime I did anything that was unexpected. So I was attracted to that kind of idea, the Tim Conway going off script, the kind of being a little dangerous and nobody knowing what you're doing. But then when I heard the sports competitive, I was like, not for me. I don't like that. Then I ended up getting hired by SAK to do shows at Epcot Center, is how I started. And they had a group called Mud Puppies, and I heard Dave talking about that, and you mentioned that before. And so every Tuesday night, I would go down to the Bonkers Comedy Club, and I would watch them do the show, and I was just enamored. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I wanted to be a part of it so bad. And I was like, well, if I keep showing, maybe someday they'll ask me on stage. And the other part of that is the SAK shows that we were doing at Epcot. Those shows were scripted with moments of improv. It was scripted, but you never knew exactly what was going to happen because of the audience participation. So I really was attracted to that, and I loved doing it. But I don't know if it was really, I guess maybe they called it improvisational, but I didn't put it together that that's really what it was, I think, at that point, until I saw the Mud Puppies. So I'd go and see them every week until finally they were having a workshop for potentially bringing some new people into that group. And so I did a 6-week workshop. At the end of it, the person running it said, yeah, I don't think improv is for you. And I was devastated, and I was like, and then I was like gun shy of improv. And I believed when she told me that. I was like, oh, okay, that I guess that's not what I should be doing, and was kind of scared of it. And then we did the show Las Vegas Hospital in the abandoned funeral home downtown Orlando, and I was part of that, which is funny. I was scared of improv because we would develop that entire show through improv in Will, Sarah, and Claire, Sarah's garage. And then we ended up doing the show at the funeral home, and that took off. It was like immediately that was kind of like a hit, and people were like showing up. We were selling out this little show during Arts in April. And then I think it was Claire, who had come from Vancouver Theater Sports. And she said, yeah, I think what we should do is the cast, let's do a free show after late night show, and anybody in the audience that wants to stick around can. I was like, that's great. You guys should do that. I'll be in the front row cheering you on. I can't wait to watch it. She's like, no, I really think it should be the cast of the show. Everybody doing improv. It's like, yeah, I don't think so. And literally, we were fighting backstage before that, and whoever was announcing the show said my name, and a couple of the guys pushed me on stage. And I really didn't want to go out there, but I went out there and had the time of my life. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can do this. And so the next week we did it again, and I couldn't wait to get out there for that show. And I went out there, and it wasn't so great. But because I'd had the week before, I said, oh, I can do this. I just kind of need to learn how. And so that was when I got a little more serious about, okay, what is this? Yes, and, what are the rules? How does it work? And we started doing regular improv workshops with that group that Claire led. And then the lab opened, and we were doing improv shows all the time. So I really learned on stage in front of audiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way. You need that aspect or that component to learn anyway. So, I mean, may as well combine the two. When did this discussion start about, hey, let's get out of town, let's head west?
There was a point where there was a core group that were the main performers that performed regularly. And we kind of went to the leadership a second and said, we kind of want to make it about this group, that people are coming to see this group. Is there a way to do that? Kind of looked at it, and they're kind of like, it doesn't really work with what we're doing. And so kind of coinciding with that, I had some opportunities to do some writing and directing for Nickelodeon, some live events. And went and did that, and was in New York for a couple of months, and was there and went and saw some Broadway shows, everything. It's like, wow, the people that I'm seeing in these shows here are good, but they're not better than the people I'm working with on a regular basis. I was like, and I'm working with these people, so I have to be on the level that they're on, and they're as good, if not better, than the people I'm seeing on Broadway. Maybe I should go to a bigger market. So I started thinking about that after going to New York, and I was thinking to move to New York. Also, 5 years of doing the lab pretty regularly, very regularly. And still in my 20s. So I'd always thought, do I want to go to a bigger market? That was always in the back of my mind. And then when it looked like I don't really have anywhere else I can go, I don't have anywhere to progress here in Orlando. This is the pinnacle here, doing SAK very, very regular. But it did start to make me think, okay, I could stay here in Orlando and I'd be very happy, grow old, do this for the rest of my life, and it'd be a great life. But I would always be like, what if I went to the bigger market, something like that. So I started thinking New York or LA.
Yeah.
And about that time, I went to an improv tournament in LA and had a great time. Yeah, it was a great experience. So then I started thinking about it, and I had a girlfriend in New York at the time. So I'd taken a couple of trips up there, so I was thinking that. But then I took another trip there the girlfriend, her parents were extremely wealthy, had a beautiful place, and I got to stay there. Had my own wing of their penthouse apartment I would stay in, limousine service wherever we wanted. If you're sitting there, you said, mango juice sounds good right now. And then 15 minutes later, you hear a knock on the door, and there were just nobody there. There would just be a cup of mango juice that somebody had gone and gotten. And you're like, what is this? So I did not have a realistic view of moving to New York. And then I took another trip where I was with a starving artist friend. And it's like, 6-story walk up, rats on the steps that say, hey, how you doing? And I was like, oh, this is the real life of New York. This isn't what I want. I'd also been to LA. And I was like, LA is like a bigger Orlando where it's just spread out in strip malls. And it was like, I think that's more my speed.
Yeah.
So I ended up making the decision to move out to LA. So, yeah, it was late in 94. I think I announced, or at the beginning of 95, somewhere in there. I was at a company meeting and I announced that I had made the decision I was going to leave. And then after that, Jonathan Mangum said, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do that too. I ended up doing more work for Nickelodeon for live events. And so my move to LA was delayed till later, but Jonathan moved. So he ended up getting out here actually first. I made the decision first, but he got here first. And then I moved out here, and then we ended up being roommates for several years. And he had success with a couple of commercials and bought a house. And I rented a room from him after we had been roommates. And then I got some success with some commercials, and I was able to buy my own place. And so that's kind of the move out here, how that happened and where the decision came. It's like, okay, in Orlando, I've done theme parks and SAK, and SAK is kind of the pinnacle for performing for me in Orlando of what I wanted to do and could do there. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to go beyond, I think I've got to go somewhere else. But then the rest of the group coming out and us forming our group, or that core group coming out, happened. See, I got here June 15th, 1995. And then less than a year later, in 96, that was when Claire and Dave, Dano, and Matt Young, and Bill Larkin, who was our pianist, all came out together, and Dave's wife, Morgan, and Claire's husband, Will, they came in tow as well and supporting. And Will was actually our director at first, and then that changed, and we just kind of didn't really need that. We just kind of formed our group, and we're self-directing with each other. But yeah, then we formed our group, House Full of Honkies.
So the group didn't form until everyone else had migrated?
No, we got here, and Jonathan was here a few months before me, so he knew a few people from improv tournaments, that type of stuff, and had gotten in, and he was performing a show called The Cream at Acme Comedy Theater on La Brea in Hollywood, and a couple other places. I think he had been a little bit involved with LA Theater Sports when he first got here, but I think he was expecting it to be like Orlando, and it wasn't. So it was like, that's not what I want it to be. So yeah, just kind of meeting people, starting to get invited to do improv shows and to guest here and there. So just sort of finding that footing. So I was lucky he had been here because he really served as an introduction into places. And so I started performing at the Acme Theater with that, and it was a show that was hosted by Fred Willard, who I grew up with and big fan, and really got to know him well, and he and his wife became friends, and I miss them very much. But he hosted the show, and so I was just thrilled. And some other improvisers that I had known through theater sports were regular performers there, and so it was just like you were invited. And so I think it was once a week, and you would get invited or you wouldn't to a show. And that was the biggest adjustment, is I went from doing 11, 12 shows a week to one show a week, maybe. And so it's just like, I just want to perform. I want to perform. So that was the biggest adjustment coming out here. But then the way the rest came out was we went to, Dano got married, and so we all went up to Massachusetts for his wedding. And so our group had gathered, and we were in a van riding somewhere, and we just all started talking. And it's like, at this point, we had been separated for 6 months. I had been gone for about 6 months. And everybody's like, well, I miss performing. I miss performing with you. What we want to do it together? Well, okay, what we have is too good. We can't just let this die. So let's get our group back together. All right, well, if we reform in Orlando, we're not going to top what we did there. So then it was, again, the same kind of idea. It's like, well, we need to go to a bigger market. New York or LA. And Jonathan and I were already in LA. So everybody started saying, yeah, I mean, we're leaning more towards wanting to get into television and film. So we all said, okay, let's reform in LA. And then less than 6 months later, everybody else was out here. So Wayne was out here before that. I'm trying to remember where he was in that migration. I don't remember exactly where he may have been here before me. I don't remember. But it was all around the same time.
And I don't mean this in a bad way, but was there any consideration of the lab, or what was the thought in terms of when all of you left, what would happen with the lab or any of that?
Well, because it was such a slow progression, it was like going, okay, I decided I was going to move. And then Jonathan did. And so it was kind of like because initially it wasn't like, oh, this big group going
Right.
until later after that. And so I definitely, for me, I was in a different mindset. At that point, I had been in LA for a year. So everybody leaving. And of course, you do have the thoughts. It's like going, well, we knew we were leaving behind with some really good people. All these people who'd taken classes and come up and started performing. So it's like really good people. And certainly our hope was that it would continue to go and thrive. Certainly we also acknowledged it was like, yeah, it's going to be a change. It's definitely going to be a change. But just kept hearing it's like going, oh yeah, it was an adjustment and times were tough. We would hear from stuff, but it found its way. And then, yeah, it was a few years later. I don't remember how many years later it was, but they had their big 25th anniversary for SAK, the company, not the lab, but the company, and went back to do a performance. And at that time, the theater was still at the original Church Street station. So it had only been 2 or 3 years after I left, and I showed up at the theater. And there were all these people that I walked, because I was expecting, I'll walk in, everybody's going to be Joel, like Norm walking into Cheers. And I walked in, and it was just like a bunch of people was like, who's that? Who's he? I don't know. I think his picture's in the lobby or something. I don't know who he is. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, this definitely has moved on. And so, yes, at the beginning when you said that you've heard my name, it's like, oh, I was remembered. Oh,
yes. And what was the discussion or the expectations for the group, for the Honkies, if there were any? And what I mean is, I know there are other groups that have talked and spoken and been like, we're going to be the next Kids in the Hall. We're going to be the next Python. We're going to succeed as a group, and all of us together are going to do this thing. And then all of us together are going to write movies and be in movies, et cetera, et cetera. Was that the expectation, or what was, if any, conversations around that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it was. We wanted to be a comedy troupe. Wanted to be known. We were really looking towards television, and we were really fortunate, and then we got some great opportunities. We did do a pilot for ABC and a hidden camera show where we were basically doing improv characters on the street with hidden cameras, and it was really, really fun. But that was a huge disappointment because it was a fun premise, but we had too many producers. They didn't get along. And so when we saw the raw footage, I remember, I don't remember if we were all there, but I remember Claire and I were there, and we just went and saw the footage before it was edited, anything, and watching it, I never laughed harder. I was like, this is really funny. And so really excited about it. And then when I saw the edited version, it was like, this is not funny. You don't know what's going on. It's confusing. And it was because the producers all had infighting and different ideas. And so it just kind of became, fish nor fowl. It didn't know what it wanted to be. And so when it got edited, it just was a confusing mess, which was really, really sad because it was like, oh, I know the stuff we got on film was super funny. But we did get that opportunity. The sad part with that was we had some heat, especially with ABC, and had ABC executives say, hey, anytime you guys want to pitch a show, let us know. And we got together and had some meetings. All right, let's come up with some other premises, some other shows. And we had a couple of meetings and didn't come up with anything we liked. And then we just got busy with other stuff. And then, of course, that executive moves on somewhere else, or this has happened, or it's too much time has gone past. And so for me, that's one of the biggest regrets is we didn't take advantage of that opportunity we had. And I think we just kind of assumed, oh, we'll always have that opportunity. And then you look back and go, oh, no, we had a really great opportunity we didn't take advantage of.
Yeah.
We wanted to be on television doing comedy shows. And certainly when we first came out, we'd put together a sketch and improv show. We would do sketches and then we'd do a little improv. Okay, and here's a written sketch and improv. And it was a fun show. But again, we soon found our real strength was the improv. As much fun as the sketch was, our heart and our real love for that. And then Whose Line Is It Anyway came along, and they kind of took the improv format. And it was like, that's what it exists. So it's like, if you're going to do it, you got to do something different. And so a guy that we knew, Kerry Patrick, had come up with this hidden camera concept for a show. And so we did that, and unfortunately, it turned out the way it did. Yeah, so our hope was to be, like a Kids in the Hall, but not necessarily in sketch. Kids in the Hall, but doing improv.
Yeah.
In a new and innovative way. We also had Game Show Network came and was real close to doing a pilot with us for a game show, improv game show, that was one of the early formats that we did with the House Full of Honkies show. It was called You Bet Your Honky. So we did that, and we would have audience members that were contestants, and they would be sort of placing bets on us and winning prizes throughout that. And then there was the final bonus round, and if they won that, then they got, I think it was $54.32, some very odd number, because for some reason we thought that was funny. Yeah, and a few times people won, and we would give them $53.32 or whatever it was. So, but it was a fun format, and we got really close. The guy from Game Show Network, he liked it, but apparently the rumor is his wife didn't really get it, and so she kind of talked him out of it. She was like, I don't see it. He was like, I thought it was funny. I think it's good. I think this could be a fun, interesting show. And his wife was like, no, I don't think so. It was dumb. Anyway, that was the rumor. I have no idea if that's true or not.
I don't know if it's funny or tragic that all of those anecdotes, those terrible Hollywood anecdotes, are true.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, there are. Yeah, a lot of Hollywood cliches, and unfortunately, if you come out here, you experience most of them. Yeah.
When you think about the pilot, can you conceive of a way through the fog of time that could have been edited to succeed, or was it destined? Is it something you just had to watch all the way through as it was for it to really make sense?
No, I think with the footage that we had, it really could have been something. But we also were the idea was like 1 year ahead of its time, just barely ahead of its time. That year, it was like outside the box. People would hear about it and be like, oh, what is this? And they didn't quite get it. The next year, there were several hidden camera pilots that went and were fairly popular. It was around that time. There was something called Spy TV. I think they did a couple of seasons. And there was, I think Jamie Kennedy had a hidden camera. But there was like 3 or 4 scare tactics that came out right after that.
Yeah.
That it was like, if we had been maybe a year later, we maybe could have been part of that. It's like, oh, this network has a hidden camera show. We need to have something to compete with that. And then ABC maybe would have picked it up, or whatever network.
Yeah.
So our timing was just a little off.
It sounds like it's such a natural thing, or I mean, a good fit for what I know of. I mean, even when I came through, SAK is so audience forward and audience minded, and plays with the audience and wants the audience to really be a part of it. So that type of show seems like, oh yeah, that seems like that would fit kind of what I know of SAK's origins and the Trunk Show and all this stuff and playing with people and that. So that is a shame that didn't happen.
It really is. It really is too bad. And every once in a while, I still go, it's still a good idea. And Kerry, who was the guy who came, he would come to our shows. Like, he actually started with SAK doing Ren Fair performances, and I think he did Epcot as well. And so that's where he had started. He had left SAK before I got there, but I had met him a couple of times and actually performed with him once out of some, I don't remember why or how. So I knew him, but he and Claire still work together quite a lot. Really, really nice, great guy. But he was the one who kind of came up with the concept. And then he brought in a production company. We shot a sizzle reel. So they were partners. And then ABC bought it. And they said, well, we want to bring in our production company, Touchstone. And then they said, well, this is our improv guy from Whose Line. So he was brought in as a producer. So we just had too many chefs. But I still think it's a fun idea. There was some fun footage that I think if it had been put together in a clear way. Because part of the problem was audiences would look at it and watch it and they go, well, wait a minute, is that an actor or is that the mark? Is that a regular person or an actor? What's going on? And it just wasn't clearly set up. And I don't think they could agree on how to do it. So they just didn't do it. And then it was just confusing. Yeah, which confusion's not good for comedy.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've learned.
Well, speaking of things that are a little confusing, how did Quick Wits come about?
Oh, Some of the improvisers just around Los Angeles that we knew were involved with that. Dan O'Connor from LA Theater Sports or Improv Theater, and Dave Rosowski was part of that and kind of putting it together. And so they pulled some people in. So I think the first group that went and shot some episodes, I think Wayne was part of that, and Claire may have been as well, but I don't think the rest of us were. Then I think myself and Jonathan in the next round that they shot. So it wasn't, they would shoot like over a weekend and get, I don't know, 6 episodes, something like that. So they had gone and done it. And then we were recommended. And I think Jonathan and I were a team, or maybe I teamed with Wayne first. And then Jonathan and I were teamed. But then we were all kind of slowly brought into it until by the end, all the honkies had performed. I had teamed up with, Matt and Dave teamed up, and Matt Young and Dave, and Dano and I teamed up. I did an episode with Claire. And we were just kind of, hey, you want to come perform? I was like, oh, okay. So we were just hired hands that showed up. But it was fun. It was interesting. And I was always surprised if I would ever get recognized from that, because it's like, who was up at 2 a.m. watching this stuff?
Yeah.
But they were out there, and I'd be walking around LA and go, you're the guy from Quick Wits. It's like, what? Yeah.
I just talked with Charlie Downs, who's one of the techs at SAK.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, yeah, so I asked him the question I asked you, is, how did you become aware of improv and all that? And he's like, well, I used to watch Quick Wits. I was like, what? You're the first person I've met that watched it like when it was live on the air, because I didn't know it existed. He's like, oh yeah, it came on after SNL. So
right.
Yeah, they're out there. And it was 4 or 5 seasons, right? It had some legs.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Even if it changed clothes every season.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. You never knew who the host was going to be every season. It was somebody new. Well, let's try this. Okay, let's try this. And yeah, I mean, it was fun to do. I loved doing it, but it always was by the seat of its pants, and always felt like, oh, okay, this is not going to go another season. oh, you want us to come back and do more? Okay, we will. But it always felt like it was on the verge of just kind of going away. And it was kind of a weird concept, because it's like, well, we're going to challenge you to this, but we've had time to prepare it, but you're doing it like it's improv. So it was this weird kind of thing that you would watch it and go, well, wait a minute, is this sketch? It's like, well, yeah. Is it improv? It's like, kind of, because we would write them, but it would still be fairly loose. But yeah, we would know ahead of time the challenges and what they were going to be. We would write it, come up with it, and then do it. So it wasn't really improv, but the way we were performing it, it looked like it. And they ended up putting a disclaimer where a guy would say, the performers have had a chance to prepare these bits ahead of time. So to let them know, it's like, we're not pretending this is really improv. But it kind of felt like we were. So people are always kind of like, are you guys making that up? It's like, no, it's prepared. We wrote it ahead of time. But it was an interesting show. It was fun to do. And I think there were only 3 seasons. The first 2 were in Chicago. So you get a free trip to Chicago, which was fun. And then they shot the last season out here. And that wasn't as much fun, because it was like, I just get in my car and drive, across town and to some warehouse and do the show. It's like, this isn't nearly as fun as going to Chicago.
Did you have any idea who they were competing with? Were they trying to do something that would compete with Whose Line, or why was the format such a hodgepodge?
I think they wanted to do sketch, but then they go, well, that doesn't work because we need sets and props. How can we do it without that? If we take the competitive format of theater sports and comedy sports and Duel of Fools type of thing, where we have 2 teams, they're performing, and we give them challenges, and then what do they come up with that, and they write it. I think it was a budget thing. It was like, we're not going to build sets, we're not going to get props, but we can have you perform it like an sketch done in the style of an improv. So I don't think it was competing with Whose Line. I'm trying to remember. I don't think Whose Line was on when it started.
Yeah, it may not have been.
It may have overlapped by the end of it. But yeah, I think it was on before Whose Line. So yeah, it was a trailblazer for Whose Line.
Yeah.
Whose Line wouldn't have existed without us. Yeah, it was an interesting format, but you always felt like the audience was a little bit confused because we were doing it in the style of improv, but it was sketch.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just seemed like it was like, what is this? But I loved doing it. It was fun.
We found some on YouTube anyway, and I was able to watch some, and it definitely of its time in terms of
Yes.
design and everything. And
That's a very polite way of putting it.
but I mean, there's lots of shows I remember. It kind of just takes me back, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember everything used to look that way.
Yeah.
And definitely an interesting chimera of a show in terms of, it's not really improv, but it's not really sketch.
Yeah.
And so many super talented people that are there doing it too. So that was fascinating.
Oh yeah, I remember because you would try to watch, other people perform when you were there shooting. It's like you kind of needed to prepare and rehearse and get ready for your taping, but you would also try to watch. And I remember watching this guy say, "Oh, he's really funny," and it was Jack McBrayer who ended up on 30 Rock, and I was like, "Oh, that guy's really funny." And lo and behold, it's like a few years ago, watching 30 Rock, I was like, where do I know him from? Quick Wits! Oh, yeah. So you never know. You never know who showed up. And I'm sure there's other recognizable people that I would go back and go, oh, that's right. They were on there. Yeah. They definitely got some really talented people to be on there.
Yeah. So does Acme Theater still exist?
Acme Theater, where we performed, that theater is no longer there. It's changed into something else. It became a different theater for a little while, and now I don't think it's a theater anymore, which is too bad because it was a really great space to perform in, little 99-seat house. But it was really a pretty little nice intimate theater that worked well. But it's not there anymore. Acme, the company, may still exist. I'm not sure actually. I'd have to look that up. I know they had a secondary space for a while, but I don't think that's there anymore. So they may still be a company, but I don't think they have a theater currently in LA. And it may be. It may also just be gone. I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you perform improv in LA as a group, or just because they revived Las Vegas Hospital, right, at some point?
We did. We did Las Vegas Hospital at what's now called the Gary Marshall Theater. It was the Falcon Theater at that time. He ran it. Gary Marshall ran it. But yeah, we did a run of that out here. It did not go as well here. It was not as well received. And I think there were several reasons for it. I didn't think that space really lent itself to what it was. It's not a huge theater, but there's a separation between the audience and that. So I've worked there several times, and you really have to work to overcome that separation that can be there in that space. So I don't think it was great for that. And it was a fun run, and we had audiences that came. I don't think we were ready when we opened, which was usually the case. It would be like, come a week or two into the run before you come to see it, because we're improvisers, we're also lazy, and we're like, oh, I'll just improvise. Well, when you're doing something that is mostly scripted, you need to rehearse and be prepared. And we almost never were, which is really sad. So by the end of the run, I think it was good, but it didn't open with a bang. And so it didn't really take off doing a hospital out here. Also, I think the LA audience has a different sensibility. Also, some years had passed, and it was kind of like, I think we needed to write a new show. It felt like it, as you said, it was of its time. And I think it needed maybe a little more updating, or just it was fine. It was good. I had a great time doing it, but it didn't really land like it had when previous times we've done it. I think we did it 3 times in Orlando during the time we were there, twice at the lab and once at the funeral home. But yeah, so we did it out here, and it was fun to do, and there were plenty of people who liked it, but there were a few who didn't.
Audience members or cast members?
Audience members. No,
Okay.
we had fun. And I think maybe during that run, we got a little too self-indulgent. That's the dangerous thing when you have loosely scripted, when you give the performers permission to kind of, okay, yeah, go off script, play, have fun with it, is it can become self-indulgent. And I certainly was guilty of that with certain things. It's like, okay, there's a scene going on. The scene actually needs to get some information out, and I'm in the background making fart noises the whole time, because I know I'm going to crack Dave up. And so it was self-indulgent. So I do think that run kind of suffered from it, certainly from me, if not from all of us to a certain degree.
And I know you came back to Orlando and did Fool Fest at some point, in the Big Stinkin' Improv Fest in Austin.
Yep.
Did you do more festivals than that? And that was improv, right?
Yeah, Big Stinkin' Improv Festival was an improv festival, which is good because they called it an improv festival. That's good that's what it was. Yeah, that was fun. I think we went there 2 years, but I don't think it exists anymore. But And that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was great. We were a group called House Full of Honkies, and so they did a double bill with another group. And I believe they were, I forget where they, I think they may have been out of Chicago. It was an all black group called We Be Negroes. So it was the double bill of the Honkies and the Negroes. So, which again, this was of a different time, and you probably couldn't get away with that now. But at the time, people was like, "Oh, we got to go see this," and we had a fun show. So I think they did like they opened the show, then we came out and did a set, and then we did a short set at the end together, to say show unity of mankind.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. And then we had a great run there, and we got invited to perform at the grand finale final night, and that was really fun because that was like 2,000 people in the audience, and it was great. It was such easy improv because when you have a crowd that big, you say something, there's a big laugh. You have all this time to kind of sit there and think or look into your scene partner's eyes and kind of go, oh, where this is going. Yeah. You just have time to, when an audience doesn't laugh and you start panicking and it feels like, oh, there's no time, I'm rushing and blah, 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 blah. This was the opposite of that. It was like you could take your time and come up and perfectly formulate the joke of your next improv line, and then you'd say that, and another big laugh that would last, and there'd be waves, and then, okay, you have a great line now, okay, or do something funny, whatever it was. So that was a great experience. I loved when we performed there, especially the final night.
And when you came back for Fool Fest, was that the Amelia Street space then, not Church Street, right?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that was, yeah, that was it was the old Pinky Lee's restaurant. So yeah, that was the Amelia Street space. So yeah, I performed there. I don't think I ever performed at the Orange Street space. I visited there. I taught a class there, but I never performed in that space. And yeah, I can't. I really want to go see the new space that's back on Church Street.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet either, but the pictures are gorgeous.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
I really hope I get a chance to go back to Orlando. I would love to go by and see a show and go, that's my picture on the wall.
Okay, so let's switch gears. We'll get through as many of these as we can. If we can't get through them all, that's fine as well. Joel, how do you get into the proper headspace to play?
I think I kind of live in that headspace most of the time. And I think that comes from the early days at SAK and also that group of people, because we were just hanging out at the offices during the day, and then we did shows at night. And so we were always like teasing and messing and writing jokes. So it really was just kind of like all the time. And then we go on stage, and it was like going kind of the same thing that we do in the office, but with a little more energy. And there's an actual game that we're being challenged to by the ref or the host. So stated that, but certainly before shows, it was a matter of, all right, let's do some warm-ups, just kind of get your brain warmed up and going. So whatever warm-up games that you like to do, I like to do some of that. I don't like to overdo it because I don't want to wear myself out.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like a little bit of warm-up, big booty, or just doing a speak in one voice interview, or to-do run, although I haven't done to-do run in probably a decade. I don't know where that one even came from in my brain, or a rap setup kind of thing. Whatever it might be, just a little warm-up, do it, and then let's go do the show. I don't like to overdo it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite get for?
I like doing something where you kind of do a little bit of a sidetrack and ask somebody about that. Hey, what do you do for a living? Something like that. Okay, what's the most challenging part of your job? And then take whatever that is. Dealing with my employee. So get something that is a little more specific. I do have a pet peeve. I have a least favorite get for, which is the other side of the pendulum, but I see it a lot with younger, newer performers where they'll just say, okay, can I get a suggestion? And I'm constantly like harping on, ask for something specific.
Yeah.
The audience, they just go blank. If you're that open, they don't know what to say, what to do, and you want to set them up for success. So ask for something specific. So anything as long as it's specific, but probably my go-to is an occupation, relationship, kind of the normal ones. I don't want to get too creative with it, although I appreciate it when they get creative. My favorite at getting suggestions is to watch Claire Sarah, because she'll go up with no idea what she's going to ask for, and you never know what will come out of her mouth. I remember a few times get up there and say, okay, I would like a type of collar. A type of collar, what? But then she got the suggestion Peter Pan. Peter Pan collar. It's okay. That's a thing. Somebody knew it. And so a scene about Peter Pan happened. I'd like a shape of a pool. One time she asked for kidney. And so we had a whole scene about, transplanting a kidney or something. So I enjoy watching her do it. But my favorite thing is just make sure it ask for something specific.
Well, and the sort of non-specific ones leads, I think, to my next question, because I feel like these are probably more prevalent. But do you now, or can you remember a least favorite suggestion, a suggestion that you got too often or just despised getting?
Proctologist. Yeah, that's one that you would hear all the time. Yeah, could I get an occupation, a job somebody might have? Proctologist. And well, first of all, the suggestion is not, it's like, okay, yeah, we can do a scene about that and we can make it work. And especially at SAK, we like to work clean. We didn't want to get into too much scatological stuff. But it also was the person who would say it, you would see them yell it and then look at their friends like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it kind of made me not like them. Not just the suggestion, but I don't like the personality that wants to yell that and thinks that's hilarious. So not that I want to spread hate or anything like that, but I would have like a little kind of like, oh, just, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give no more time to that.
Do you have a favorite way to burn a suggestion that doesn't inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, that's simple. It's like, oh, that's a great example. Yeah, something like that. That's just an easy kind of diversion. Or go the absolute opposite. I've done this and I've seen people do this where, let's say somebody does yell out proctologist and you just kind of stop and say, really? Do you really want to see a scene about a proctologist up here? Because, and you kind of shame them a little bit, which I don't think is the right thing to do. An audience, you're there, they've paid money to be entertained. However, there is some educating the audience. And especially when we were doing shows on the regular and we had our regular audience members during the early SAK days and probably still to this day, that somebody would yell out a suggestion like that, the rest of the audience would be like, no, don't take, So they didn't want to see that. So it was easy to get around it and just go, okay, yeah, something like that, but maybe not so involving this area.
Yeah. Speaking of the audience, what do you look for in an audience volunteer? Is there something that when you're scanning the audience, you're like, that person would do great, or I'm going to stay away from that person?
Yeah, well, if somebody yells proctologist, I stay away from them. But really, picking audience members was an art form that SAK taught. And in my training, when I started doing the shows, the trunk shows at Epcot, that a big portion of that was how to pick people. And also doing those shows on the regular, you learn very quickly. You can look at somebody and say, this is who you want. And the person you want is the one who wants to volunteer but is too shy. So I don't ever ask for, hey, who wants to do this? Raise your hand if you want to come up and do this, and bring them up. Because the person that raised their hand wants to come up and be funny. But the person that wants to raise their hand but is too shy to do it, that's the one you want. Because you can set them up for success and they'll pay attention and listen. They're not going to go off on their own and try to hijack the show. They want to be part of it. So it's looking for that person that you go, they want to raise their hand. You can see it behind their eyes. Also, older people are less inhibited. So when I was 20-something doing the SAK shows, you'd look for people that are my age now. And because somebody like me, you get to be my age and you don't give a crap anymore. I don't care what you think. All right, fine. Yeah, I'll do that. So there's a certain freedom in having that attitude. So yeah, that's the type of person that you would want. Like a dad. If there was a dad at Disney when we were picking audience members who was wearing a goofy hat, it's like, okay, yeah, you could probably pick him. But a dad that was wearing a goofy hat, a Hawaiian shirt, and some other, if they had on too much, they wanted too much attention. But if they were fun enough, I'll put this cap on that my kids want me to wear. That's the kind of person you wanted to pick, but not too much.
I love that. I had never thought about that in those terms before, and I think you're right.
Yeah, the Hawaiian shirt is fine, but not the Hawaiian shirt, the hat, and
pinwheels,
oversized sunglasses or something. If it's too much, yeah.
Do you have an onstage persona, or is onstage Joel pretty much the same as regular everyday Joel?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Again, I go back to the training for the trunk shows at the Ren Fair and at Disney, because they're like, yeah, we want you to be yourself, but it's a heightened version of yourself. So you kind of play. And those shows, it was a little more of a character. But then improv, it was like, yeah, you want to be real and genuine. I don't ever want to feel like somebody's up there when they're getting suggestions or between scenes, putting on a character or
Right.
fake. It's like, yeah, I want to see you. You want to be genuine, your authentic self. So, yeah, I don't think I really have a character for between the scenes. I save that for, okay, the scene, the 3, 2, 1. All right, I'll put on some weird character.
I think I enjoy watching just the heightened versus. Yeah, I don't want to see a character either, but I know, and
Yeah,
for me, there are some things that I do when I'm on stage, even in the in between or sitting off on the stools, that I would never do. Like if I was just like out to lunch with somebody.
absolutely. You're still performing. It is a
Yes, yeah,
performance, and there are, you kind of go with those interjections, those feelings. It's like, oh God, oh yeah. If I was sitting at home or in a public park or something, I would just sit here and watch that and say, it'd be funny if somebody did that in a show. I would do that. Yeah.
yeah. The people that wouldn't just say that if they're at dinner, those are the people you don't want to pick if they're in the audience.
Right. Exactly.
In your estimation, what makes a good scene partner?
Listening, a partner who listens, pays attention, makes offers, but doesn't steamroll. What I love in improv when it's give and take, what I call ping pong, when it's like, boom, I hit it to you, you hit it back. And not too much. It's like, don't give me a huge offer. Just give me something small and I'll give you something small back. And it's amazing how quickly you can build this entire world or get to these surprising places with just 3 or 4 lines if you make these little offers, but you're really listening. So it always comes down to listening and paying attention and reacting off of that. And the yes and is adding to the offer, not saying and it's about something else,
Yeah.
Oh, I got you a puppy. Yes, and the sky is turning purple. It's like, okay, you said yes, but that has nothing to do with my offer. So somebody who will work off of that and build together really excites me. And I love working with somebody like that. Also positive. And I have to remind myself of this because it's so easy to come into a scene and start off being negative, but to come in and be positive. Scene I recently did, one of my favorites I've done in a while, was just this extremely positive scene. And it was just 2 people at a bus stop, and then they just kind of hit it off and they really liked each other. And the bus came and one had to leave, and it was really sad. And they were just like these 2 strangers who had just met but had such a great experience that leaving, it was, we broke into song because we were so emotional about having to say goodbye to this stranger. So, yeah, positivity, building together, listening, all the important tenements of improv.
What inspires you on stage?
Basically the same answer, but that cooperation, that really listening. It's the same as acting when I'm in an acting scene with somebody. If I do something and I do something surprising in the way I read a line, if they read the line the same way they have every take, that annoys me. It's like, I gave you something different. You should have a response. So you're not really listening. You've already decided on what it should be. So I would say that openness, which is all part of listening, and then being open to, let's discover what will happen. Let's change it up. Yeah, be open to whatever's going to happen and move forward.
Is there anything that shuts you down or takes you out of it on stage?
Too much negativity. Somebody who just doesn't want to try something, won't risk. It's like, oh, that's not going to work. It's like, well, let's try it. Let's try it and see. Even if it's beforehand, let's workshop it a little bit. And then if we think, okay, maybe it's not ready to put in front of an audience. And somebody who feels like they're not really improvising, they have a bag of tricks. And I've worked with a few people, and you start with them, it's like, oh, they're really good. And then you do 2 or 3 shows with them, and it's like, oh, they do the same thing every time. Yeah, I don't love that.
Yeah. Do you have any advice you'd give to your younger self?
How much younger? So if I go back to my 20s when I was at SAK, it would be, don't sweat the small stuff, have fun. And I did have fun, but there were some things that, you kind of let get to you. And it's like, hey, none of that stuff matters. What you're doing, these shows, these are the golden years. These are some of the best times you're going to have in your life. Enjoy it. Pay attention to it. Take more pictures and video more shows. I wish that we had videos of some of the shows that we did.
Yeah.
Because they were just magical moments that are just lost forever. And some of it stays in the memory, but most of it doesn't. The ones that you do tend to remember are ones that say, oh, there's footage of that. And I got to see it a couple of times.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I wish we had more footage to go back and look at some of those now.
Other than laughter, is there an audience sound that you revel in?
I love a gasp, especially when you're doing an improv comedy show and you get a genuine surprise from the audience. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Because the laughs, you get that a lot. But to kind of shift and get something where you surprise an audience is really cool.
Is there a sound from the audience that makes you uncomfortable?
It would depend on when it was happening.
So a gasp when you first walk on stage after being introduced, maybe not great.
No, you don't want that. Yeah, you walk out and you start checking your fly.
Yeah.
Is everything okay? I guess, if I heard from the audience like the sound of a grizzly bear, I would like that.
Agreed, yes.
Yeah, I don't think that's good.
What is the worst venue you've played?
Okay, well, I listened to Dave talking about the time that we did the show where our mics didn't work and we had thousands of people. I had memories as a bigger audience than what he said. I think he said 1,700. I think we had done a show for 1,700 like the year before. It was the year when everything blew up and was a terrible show. It was like 5,000 people. And the first 1,000 could hear us. It was the other 4,000 that couldn't, and they started booing. And it was just like terrible. So that wasn't so much the venue as technical. And the worst venue I think I ever performed in, and this was from time to time, the Disney style shows that we do, we'd get hired at different places to go and do those. And it was an interesting existence doing that type of corporate entertainment, because one day you would be going on a cruise and being treated like royalty, or flying to Europe, or going to Vancouver for a week and staying in this beautiful hotel and performing for these people. And then the next night you fly back to Orlando and it's like, oh, I'm doing the opening night of a Piggly Wiggly in Kissimmee. Yay. And I mean, that literally did happen. I flew from Vancouver back, and 2 days later I was at a Piggly Wiggly grand opening. But the worst venue was, it was the grand opening of a housing development, and they wanted us to come out and do some of our Renaissance show, which made no sense, but they kept offering money. We kept saying no, and they kept offering money, and we finally were like, okay, we'll do it. And we got there, and in the writer, we were supposed to have a performing space and a stage, and what they had done, and for those shows, you need an audience to be able to get to them, close proximity, and they had taken 2 pieces of plywood and plopped them on a lawn across a drainage ditch from where the audience would be. And, it was like one look at that, it was like, no. So we didn't do that there. We said, how about, can we do it here? And they had like this cul-de-sac with the model homes around it. And there was a fountain in the middle of the cul-de-sac, because it wasn't for driving on, it was for walking. And we said, can we do it right here? We could do it here if you can turn the fountain off. And they're like, yes. Because the fountain, if you ever tried to talk over a fountain, you'll lose your voice really quick. So they say, yeah, we'll go. Well, the show was already supposed to start 5 minutes ago. Okay, we'll start. Go turn off the fountain, but we'll start gathering people. So we gather people, and we're starting the show. And then the lady comes back and says, we can't turn the fountain off. So we had to. At least we weren't on the other side of a drainage ditch, but we were in front of a fountain where we couldn't hear. And then halfway through the show, we heard that the Sesame Street characters arrived and half the audience left. And this was like, oh, man. And so we were like going, okay, well, let's go see the Sesame Street characters, because everybody was so excited about it. And we started walking, and we heard a mother walking back, dragging her kid, just this redneck lady who was mad as she could be. She said, that wasn't Big Bird. That was a chicken in knee highs. And we're like, and then we saw them, and it was like, yeah, they had gotten like these terrible costumes that was like a person's face sticking out of a bird, and it did have some yellow feathers, but it was like high tops and knee highs and yellow tights. It was like, this is not, but they had advertised Sesame Street like it was the real actual characters, and you show up and it's like, oh, this is a bad Halloween costume version of Big Bird. And I think Grover was the other one that was there. And yeah, he was terrible, even worse.
Grover from Hollywood Boulevard or whatever, that's making people pay for.
Yeah. Though that made this one look professional. Yeah.
It makes you wonder who they said that you guys were.
Yeah. Well, we were advertised as Il Teatro di Bologna, which was our name in the Italian pavilion at Epcot. So we took that name because we were no longer performing at Epcot at that point when we did that show. But yeah, they also, that same group hired us to come back for the grand opening of a strip mall. And it was the same thing. They offered the same amount of money. I was like, no, we're not going to come back and do that. It was such a bad experience. And I don't know why they wanted us back. It did not work at all, but they did for a strip mall opening. And so went down there, and this terrible rainstorm came, just a deluge. And we're like, we're going to be rained out. We're not going to be able to do our show. But they had set out a tent in the parking lot where we were supposed to perform and do our show. And we were like, oh, good. Nobody's going to be there. We're not going to have to do the show. Yay. And we look out there, and there's 50 people in the tent. And we're like, oh, are you kidding me? And it's like, and so we grab our trunk and our props and our costumes, and we dredge out there through this down Florida hurricane downpour. And we get out there, and they weren't waiting for a show. They were trapped, because they had put the tent over the drainage where the entire parking lot sloped down to this one area. And it was like 4 feet of water, and our trunk was like floating away. And so we ended up, we didn't do a real show, but we just kind of were stuck there with them at that point. So we did some magic and some juggling stuff, and we entertained the crowd. So, but that was the last one of those I did for that company. If they ever came back to us again, we're like, nope, we're busy. We can't go.
I imagine the rain hitting the tent was good for acoustics as well.
Yeah, you could not talk over it. It was just like, that was when it was like, Dano was one of the performers with me, and he's pretty good at magic and juggling, that kind of stuff. So he just kind of pulled that out. And the rest of us were like, just kind of pointing to him going, yeah, look at him. Hey, he's juggling something. Yeah. But both of those were two that come to mind. And then the festival that David talked about.
What are the best note or the best words of wisdom you've received?
Stop thinking. That was a go. I was in a slump, and it was Claire Sarah. She said, yeah, I know you're not having fun. You're thinking too much. And she was right. She was absolutely right. And it kind of pulled me out of a performance slump that I was in, where it's like, I'm just not hitting. And she said, yeah, you're thinking too much. And it was, because I stopped listening, and I started being in my head, and I started thinking about, okay, what am I going to do? I got to save the scene. I got to do this. And she said, yeah, stop thinking. Start having fun again. And yeah, that was great. That was really good advice, and it was spot on as far as advice for improv.
What about the least helpful note you've received, or the least helpful note you can conceive of, if no one has ever actually given you a least helpful note?
Oh, no, I've gotten some bad notes. This was not for improv. It was for something we were filming. And they said, okay, yeah, let's do it again, but I want you to be completely deadpan. Completely deadpan. It's like, okay. So I did it, completely deadpan. And he said, but with energy. So you want energetic deadpan. I need you to explain that to me. Yeah. So I didn't know what to do with that. Yeah. We did not work together again after that.
I believe it.
I was not hired by him.
If you could do a scene with anyone alive, who would it be?
Bonnie Hunt.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a small part in a movie called Cheaper by the Dozen, which was great because I got to work with Steve Martin. Most of my stuff was cut out. If you watch it, you'll see me approach in the background several times, and then they cut away when I actually spoke. There's a sad story, but I won't tell it. It's too long, where I had some really fun stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor for a particular reason. But she was in that movie, and I met her in passing, and the director said, oh, I wish you and Bonnie had a scene together, because she loves to improvise. Steve Martin does not, which I did some improv in that movie that was cut out. And he said to me, yeah, that's fine. You do whatever you want. Just don't include me. I'll be here. Don't bring me into if you go off in improv. And I was like, okay. So I left him alone. And I remember in that movie, I was like, oh, I wish we did have a scene together, because she was itching for somebody to improvise with. And I always thought, oh, that would have been a lot of fun. And I admire her a lot, and like a lot of the stuff that she's done.
If you could do a scene with anyone who's no longer with us, who would it be?
Probably George Washington, because he was hilarious. The way he defeated the British cracked me up.
Yeah, stopping in the middle of the river just to get that painting done.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Well, George Washington.
Yeah.
He's a nut. And he was always taking his teeth out and coming at you with those. He not a lot of people remember him for the true genius prop comic that he was. But, oh, man, he would put Carrot Top to shame.
Yeah, I think the downfall was dragging that cherry tree around with him everywhere.
Yeah. Well, he should have lied.
Yeah.
He should have just lied. Yeah.
What about Tim Conway, Fred Willard?
Oh, yeah. Certainly Tim Conway would be a dream to perform with. And I got close one time, but it didn't happen. Fred, I love Fred. One of my favorite people. I love doing scenes with him. But Fred was of a slightly different generation as well. And he he was great. And I loved improvising with him when it was a situation, sort of an interview type situation. There was nobody better at that. But when you were up doing a story and you would sense the ending coming, you go, oh, okay, there's our ending. Here we go. Yeah, everybody hang on, here we go. And then he would come in and throw another left turn. It's like, oh, okay, well, now we got to deal with that. Okay, let's find a different ending and come back around. And, and so, yeah, there were a couple of times, but gosh, I would love to work with him again too. Yeah, he was just the nicest, sweetest man, and his wonderful wife Mary was a very special person too.
Of all the Christopher Guest movie quotes that my wife and I will do to each other randomly throughout the day, I think Fred Willard has the most that we pull out.
Yeah, and that type of situation, there's nobody better. I mean, that perfect little thing where it's just like, yeah, here's the situation. Now just do some absurd, asinine things. He was just a genius. And if you can get the DVD of Best in Show and watch deleted scenes, you'll see me do a scene with Eugene Levy.
Nice. I think I have that, so I will have to
go and check it out. It's really a fun little scene, and I was fortunate to get to work with Christopher Guest on a bunch of commercials, and then I did a little thing in Best in Show that ended up on deleted scenes, and then A Mighty Wind I did another thing, and I get residuals for it, but I can't find myself in the movie. So supposedly I'm in there somewhere, but yeah.
What about anyone fictional that you would like to do a scene with, other than George Washington?
Yeah, we all know he's fictional. Probably Papa Smurf.
Why?
He's so blue. I want to cheer him up. Wow. I'm going into the dad joke phase.
I love it. That's it for this interview with Joel McCrary. You can catch him on lots of things. Check out his IMDb if you want to stream some stuff he's in. You can send me questions, comments, requests, suggestions, or cease and desists to improvbrain@gmail.com or find me online at improvbrain.com and find the podcast on Patreon. Thanks for listening to Improv Autopsy.